Welcome to another video tutorial here on strategies, tactics, and techniques for MMA. Today's video tutorial is going to cover an important subject that I've covered in the past, but I haven't touched on it briefly, and we're going to kind of go into it differently than I've done in the past. Today's topic is combat strategies and learning how to identify or recognize 4 distinct different types of styles that you're going to face in MMA. Okay, this topic here is what I've called, identified as called archetype fighters, which is basically a specific style that a person is going to adopt when they are, in a combative situation, when they're under stress. And what we want to do today is go through each one of them specifically and kind of show you some of the stances or positions and some of their primary objective for each and every single one of the archetypes. Okay, there are 4 major archetypes that everybody's going to classify under one way or the other, and usually everybody's going to have at least 2 archetypes, one being the dominant archetype. Okay, now why is this important to know? It's important to know because when you're sparring and fighting, your opponent is going to already subconsciously respond into a specific pattern that gives him what he thinks the best chances of survival and ultimately staying in control. And it's going to come out consciously in the fight. Okay, everybody has it, and it's how a person is subconsciously wired when it comes to life-threatening situations. So whether it's fighting, whether it's domestic violence, arguing or whatnot, it's how they're going to approach and try to control the scenario that they feel is giving them a threat. Okay, so I've talked about this before in the past, and I've explained each one kind of in depth and like what they are and what they are not. The other reason why this is important to know is because if you can recognize exactly the style of your opponent immediately, right? What you can do is immediately start setting up an easier strategy and the tactics and techniques that can go along to help you accomplish that strategy. Remember, strategy is your overall game plan, what you're trying to accomplish. Your tactics are your specific movements that you're going to take that are going to help you execute that strategy, and your techniques are the specific tools that you're going to use in combined with your tactics to help you carry out that strategy. Okay, as opposed to sparring somebody or fighting somebody and you really don't know their style of fighting, you're really not really perceptually aware of their style, and you're just trying to guess, ultimately just trying to go down the list of your favorite moves to try to hopefully hit him with and beat him in sparring or fighting that way. So one of the important things that I do a lot is I immediately try to is get to figure out exactly what style, how they operate when they're under stress. I mean, if you gave me the UFC roster of fighters, I can tell you exactly each one of them and exactly their specific style and what happens when they are fighting and what they do as a primary response. So we want to go ahead and identify those specific archetypes. There are 4 basic archetypes, okay, and they're going to be classified into these categories: sluggers and chargers. Okay, those are 2, sluggers and chargers. Then we're going to say runners and blockers. Okay, and we're going to go through each one specifically. So let's go ahead and get into the first archetype here. Okay, the first archetype or style of fighter that I want to discuss is very common in sport fighting, is what is called a slugger. Okay, a slugger, put simply, is a power puncher, somebody who is willing to take damage to give damage back. Okay, that's a very cut and dry definition of this. So he is a style of fighter that is basically going to try to cause as much damage as possible in a short time frame, and he's going to do it through weight transfer. Okay, so a definition of that would be a slugger is somebody who's going to stand or try to, if he's not standing in front of you, he's going to try to get in front of you, and he's going to try to get as close as he possibly can in here like this. And what his objective is to do is to swing the biggest, hardest baseball bat every time he gets close to you. Okay, that's his objective. He's going to get his power through leverage and weight transfer in here like this, irregardless if he gets hit. Okay, so he's somebody who wants to actually, you know, get you to fight, swing back at him as we trade punches in here, and he wants to give you the more damaging blows in here like this, even if he takes damage himself. Okay, he is willing to stand here and trade techniques in here like this, as long as he's still functioning, as long as he's conscious in here. If he's hitting you and you're getting the worst of it in here, right? Okay, this is what a slugger would like to do. These are very common in the UFC and MMA. And again, this is all based on a person's, how they're wired, their biological, neurological, their attitude and the behavior. Okay, so they are super aggressive fighters and people who don't want to waste any time on hanging back in here and letting somebody, come at them. They prefer to literally come out of the gates in here and stalk their way up to you in here, right? Or sprint their way up to you in here and get right at, the optimal apex of the blow or the fight here, and just start swinging in here like this. Okay? They have very little concern in defense. Okay? So often what you're going to see is, what you're looking for on that type of an archetype is, when he is standing out here like this, they're usually, a slugger guy is usually going to be set and loaded in here like this. He wants to be grounded to the ground. He's probably not going to be bouncing around in here like this, moving away, okay, because he can't set and transfer his weight. So he's going to get right out here like this and basically say, come on, let's trade punches in here. And even if the opponent gets off first in here, right, he's going to literally just try to hit anytime he can. Now, if he's not effective in the first engagement, he may reassess in here, and he's going to try to do the exact same thing in here again. He either is going to initiate in here, or he's going to let you initiate, and he's going to try to intercept you in here and just hit you with all this weight transfer like this. Okay? Most of the time, what you're going to see is sluggers are going to throw a lot of loopy punches. All right? They're not usually going to be necessarily the most precision strikes. So you're going to see a lot of overhand haymakers in here like this, and a lot of big hooks coming in here like this. Most of the time, just a lot of swatting type blows in here. Okay, most of the time. Okay, so that is a very dangerous archetype that everybody needs to address. And what the problem happens is that the other opponent doesn't have any intentions on standing here and dealing with a slugger. So what happens a lot is if I'm a slugger in here and he's trying to work his techniques so that he's trained to do, and he's not comfortable with dealing with that power in here, what's going to happen is that he's going to end up getting caught in like a crossfire in here. He's going to throw a punch in here like this, right? And the other guy's going to swing back, boom, in here, and he ain't going to like it, and he's either going to drop because I clocked him super hard, or he's going to retreat and go, I don't like this in here, and the slugger wants to get close again and keep stalking the guy until he can get right in there and swing that baseball bat again. Okay? So very dangerous guy to deal with if you're not mentally tough and willing to trade punches, or at the very least have a good defense to stop those hard swings coming at you. A slugger can run you right over. Okay? They want to stalk and destroy their opponent as soon as possible. Okay, and again, they're getting their power through leverage and weight transfer. Okay, all right. So that is a kind of a cut and dry definition of a slugger. Now, as far as the stance, okay, usually a slugger can be, is usually going to, be more loaded in here with their arms back in here like this. They're probably not going to be hanging out here with their arms down, doing something here like Floyd Mayweather or something here. They're usually going to be coiled and loaded in here. And if they're halfway intelligent, they're going to have some degree of protection, even though I kind of said they don't concern about themselves so much about defense, but they're usually going to be loaded in here like this. So if you throw a technique at them in here, they're going to either roll with the punches or move and really try to just answer right back with a hard punch. So they're not going to retreat very much because they want to stay there. Their intention is to go, you know what, you hit me in here, right? Keep throwing punches. I'm just going to stand here and take the techniques and then try to hit you back. Okay? So they're definitely not people who are going to try to be evasive and get away. All right? And that is a definition of a slugger archetype. Now let's go on to the next archetype. Okay, the next archetype that we want to discuss in here that is similar to the slugger is what we define as a charger archetype. Now the reason why I'm going into this archetype next is because the slugger and charger are very similar in what they're trying to accomplish. Okay, so you got to remember here when I define the archetypes, there are technically 4 archetypes, right? Sluggers, chargers, runners, and blockers, and they operate a little differently, each one, but basically sluggers and chargers are one category of fighters, right? Everybody has one dominant archetype. Everybody has at least 2 actually, but one being the dominant. So the reason why I'm going into the charger next is because somebody may possess the charger traits, but majority of their mindset is a slugger and a little bit of it is a charger. Okay, so somebody could be at 80% or 70% slugger mentality, and then they also can be 30% or something of a charger. And the reason why that's important to understand is because a charger is somebody, again, who's going to be super aggressive, but he's going to try to do something a little differently to get the job done. His goal is to not trade blows with you. His goal is to try to run you over like a freight train as fast as he possibly can. Okay, there's not a whole lot of chargers in the UFC that I see. There's more sluggers than I see than anything. But what happens is that a charger is somebody who is going to get his aggression across through not through leverage and trying to hit like a baseball bat, right? Just like a big hitter in here trying to get the right spot and swing that thing in the right spot. A charger is going to get his aggression through covering distance in here really fast. Okay, so his major thing is that he's similar to the slugger. He's going to try to take the fight right to you in here, not so concerned about getting hit, but he's going to get it through transferring his weight, usually through locomotion. Okay, now this guy can be super dangerous because the speed on which he's doing it is much faster than the slugger. A slugger is going to telegraph and load more. That's one of the disadvantages of that guy. A charger is not. Usually, a charger is going to be out here, in a loaded position in here, right? And he's going to try to come in here real fast and cover ground in here. Like literally, he is going to explode at you from point A and be at point B before you can even react. Okay, so he basically is freight training at you in here. Okay, so the speed of the charger is the major advantage to that archetype. Okay, again, I don't see a lot of pure chargers in the UFC and MMA organizations. I see more sluggers, but what you kind of do see is a combination of the two. Again, one being more the dominant archetype. So what you may find in a slugger charger, as we say, if he's a slugger charger, if he's more slugger, he's going to be in here, trying to hit with the biggest punches in here, right, knock you out in here like this. And if he gets stopped or rocked, right, what he may do is the charger may kick in a little bit. Okay, so he gets hit in here, he throws a punch, and boom, and he goes, whoa, I don't like that one, right? And then what he does is he flips the switch and he goes, okay, instead of trying to hit harder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back down faster now. Okay, so he may switch the gears and go, okay, if I get there faster, not necessarily with more weight transfer, more leverage, but if I get there sooner, I can still accomplish the same goal. Again, it's still aggression, right? Trying to swing as hard as you can like this, as opposed to trying to get there very fast. It's the mindset behind those two archetypes. And someone who possesses a little bit of both of those is to get there very quickly in here and run you over before you can do anything. Okay? So those two archetypes are very common in sport fighting. Again, and it has to go back to their personality and behavior. Okay? Alright, so that is a kind of a cut and dry definition of the charger. So let's go ahead and go into the next archetype now. Okay, now I've just covered the slugger and charger definition of those two archetypes in here. Those are very similar in what you're trying to accomplish. Let's go ahead and get into the other two archetypes, which are completely the opposite of those two archetypes. The next archetype we want to cover, this is archetype number 3, is what we define as a blocker archetype. Okay? So unlike the charger and slugger, we have two archetypes that are very aggressive, trying to deliver a lot of power, right? Get there very quickly and get the element of surprise in you. A blocker archetype is more of a counter fighter, more of a defensive fighter. Right? Now this archetype is very common in sport fighting because a lot of people who participate in martial arts, a lot of them go into martial arts classes and training with the mentality of trying to, be, self-confidence, unsure of themselves, low self-esteem, probably development, help developing a better self-esteem. So a lot of them are very defensive and kind of scared and threatened by just society and things like that. So their first line of defense is to defend themselves first, not to attack and be aggressive. Okay? I mean, even being aggressive and attacking somebody is still a defense within itself. One is just doing it more out of fear and anger, and one is doing it more out of being cautious, again, which is fear, and then kind of picking the time to do it right, versus someone who's aggressive is going to just not even think twice and just do it. So a blocker is somebody who's actually going to try to stay a little away from you and try to let you attack them first, and they're going to try to defend themselves and then try to counter you in here. Okay, so what that looks like in here is a blocker fighter in here is going to, doesn't necessarily have a specific stance other than just kind of keeping their hands up in place like this. So a blocker is somebody who's going to be just outside a distance where they feel that they can easily stop your attacks by picking them off with blocking techniques and then be able to hit you back. A blocker fighter also is usually going to be more concerned about finding the opening when you attack from the time that you recover. So a blocker fighter is more kind of wait for you to come in here and throw a punch. He's going to either try to block, and then step back and hit in here like this. Okay, so think of the term block in here. He's going to try to, intercept every technique that you do in here until he can find an opening in here and hit like this. Okay. The other thing that a blocker will do is that he likes to stand his ground a lot. A blocker will not retreat so much in here. And if he does retreat, here back up a little bit. If he throws a technique, in here, throw that hook and hit retreat. And when you come at him in here, he's going to get stable here again like this because he wants to get into a stance and a guard stance where he feels like he can pick off your techniques. So a blocker is going to kind of put himself in a position where he feels like his high outside lines and his center line are kind of monitored equally in here because he wants to use defenses in here to kind of put these walls up around his body in here, and as he feels safe that he picks those things off in conjunction with some kind of footwork, he can strike back in here. All right, a lot of people are blockers again because it's the nature of trying to protect yourself first and then strike back. And most people don't want to hit back if they don't have to, so they're going to try to defend themselves as much as they can, with the least amount of effort, and then only attack when they really feel threatened. Okay, so what you'll see a lot is, if he just moves at me a little bit, a blocker just may step back a little bit, but he's going to kind of plant his weight again because, let's go ahead and do that again, because he wants to counter. So if he throws a technique and I step back, I'm in a range to hit back in here like that. Okay, as opposed to the opposite would be he throws a punch and a slugger or if he was a slugger, he would just kind of maybe lose his vision and boom, and try to hit you at the same time. Or a charger, if it was a charger or something in here, as he throws a technique, he may just try to intercept by meeting you force on force. So a blocker is trying to deflect any kind of force on force and get you to expose yourself in here. It could be blocking in here, right? It could be throw the technique again. It could be covering in here like this and then trying to hit back in here. But the point is he's going to defend himself first, stand his ground, and then try to find the opening in here when you are committed in here, right? So he can cover, and then he's going to try to find the opening like this, bam, bam, and then either escape and start again, or cover in here, hit, boom, and then if he feels like he's got you stunned in here, he may come in and start to finish you off. Okay, so blocker is very common in sport fighting, along with. All archetypes are very common here, but the blocker particularly is a very common one. and that's the third archetype in here. Okay, let's go on to the fourth archetype now. Okay, the fourth archetype that's similar to a blocker is defined as what we call a runner. Now a runner, like the blocker, is also a counter fighter. Blockers and runners are counter fighters. Chargers and sluggers are interceptors and finishers. All right, keep it simple like that. All right, now the difference between a runner and a blocker is a runner is going to avoid any kind of force on force. Okay, a blocker doesn't mind force on force because a blocker has confidence, feels confident that they can pick you off, pick off your technique. So a blocker is very good with defense. Okay, he's very good with timing. A runner is very good with timing, but a runner gets his advantage more through footwork and evasion. Okay, so what you'll see a lot in runner is a runner is going to be probably more mobile in here like this. So if the camera can pick this up, if I just stand here and kind of move around on my feet, a runner's going to be moving around more because they're always ready to retreat. They're always ready to use footwork. They're ready to use angles. They're trying to keep this radius very big in here. Okay. So what you'll see a lot with a runner in here is, from his guard stance in here, is you may see his hands both up like this, okay, up here, or you may see, something like where their arm is down and then kind of a low lead like this in here, like a Floyd Mayweather or Muhammad Ali was real famous for this in here. But the point is here, what's going to happen is as soon as he throws a technique, a runner's going to move. Right? He's simply just going to leave that whole attack zone and kill zone. Okay? Right? So if you saw that in here, and what happens is he throws a punch again here. A runner's going to move and step out of the way and get you to come at him. A runner wants you to come at him. A blocker wants you to come at him. Okay? Except for the runner's going to move out of the way and then counter the energy that is still there. Right? So what you'll see a lot from a runner type of fighter, the moment he's attacked in here, he's going to move and try to hit and move again. Okay? So that was the whole strategies of Muhammad Ali, was that he was always moving and hitting. Anytime you try to get close to him in here, he was just simply gone. Okay? And the other thing that you'll see a runner do a lot is that a runner's going to be more apprehensive when he strikes. So a runner just may throw a punch out here just to kind of get in your face, but immediately he's leaving like this. Okay, so usually if he's got a good jab, which most good runners do, if he decides to attack, he's going to attack from real far out in here like this and then get out of the way. Okay, he's definitely don't want to deal with any force on force. He's not going to come crashing in here, wham, in here like this. Okay, he is going to try to hit you with the minimal amount of commitment he can and get the hell out of it. He's assuming that you're going to swing in here, boom, whoa, he's going to be gone in here like that. Okay, the runner can be a very frustrating archetype to deal with because he's always moving and he's never standing still. That's one of the hard things about him. And he also usually he's a high endurance, in fighters. So he's keeping up. He's moving constantly. So you're having to constantly chase him all over the place. Okay, which can be very dangerous to do. So he's trying to lure you in to this fight in here like this. And as you come at him in here, he's not going to be there in here like this, right? Just like getting a bull to come, at me in here, and I kind of just, get off the train track type of thing, okay? So a runner's a counter fighter, again, using a lot of evasion and a lot of footwork. So what you'll see a lot is some of their defenses, other than footwork too, maybe if he throws a punch in here, I may pull my head back in here like this, right? Okay, so another thing with a runner's real good about catching his balance. Okay, so if he throws a punch at me here, I can move offline like this, even though that wasn't the greatest slip in here. But a runner doesn't give a crap. A runner's just trying to, get out of the way in here like this and just avoid any kind of force on force. Okay, so that is the fourth archetype, which is what we want to discuss here. Okay, all right, so now let's kind of go ahead and recap on all four archetypes a little bit more in the next clip here. Okay, now that I've gave a quick definition of all four archetypes, not giving every little detail because this is a very big section of combat. This comes into combat strategies in here, and there's a lot more to it than just kind of define, what they do in here. There's their advantages and disadvantages. And again, the reason why I want to bring this up again is because what I see is a lot of fighters and coaches have no idea this exists. And if it does exist, which I don't see it exist anywhere, that they're not really using it to the degree it could be used. Okay, this is an important subject because if I'm a certain archetype, okay, let's say that I'm a runner, for example. My nature is to be a runner. Okay, that's what I do when I feel stress, is I retreat, right? Anything in life, right? It's how I'm brought up. So an archetype is, your origin, your original pattern. It's how you are wired from birth, okay? Or maybe that you were wired a certain way, but as you grew up and got older in life, certain things in life happened to you that made you that turned your conscious, your subconscious into something else, okay? But the point is that by learning the archetypes, if I'm a runner and I know that my opponent is a slugger, so I know that when he is threatened and he really wants to hit me hard or really try to get the best of me in sparring or in a fight, okay, I know he's a slugger. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out his archetype first, and we're going to assume I know what it is. It's a slugger, and I'm a runner. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all my ways of attack, all my tactics and strategies, and the techniques coupled with them that I know how to deploy against a slugger. Okay, so that means how I throw my techniques, the rhythm I use, the defenses I use, the energy that I put into the sparring is all going to be based on dealing with this slugger. All right. Now, if I do that and I can find out what his archetype is as quick as possible, that's going to help me figure out how to ultimately set up the best strategy to get to the hit. Because in sparring, it's all about getting to the hit. In the fight, in the real fight in the ring, it's all about getting to the hit and winning the fight. Okay? So what I want to do with this is I want to be able to recognize every little thing that this guy does in conjunction with his archetype. So if he's a slugger, right, then a slugger is probably going to be doing, power punching. He's probably going to be throwing a lot of, power strikes mostly. So if he's a really poor slugger, he's not going to be, he's probably not going to throw a lot of precision strikes. If he's a really good slugger, he may, but I know he's looking for the big hit, right? I know he's not going to run that much. He's not going to retreat. I know that, his pace of sparring is going to be, trying to stalk me and cut the ring off all the time in here. So those things I'm going to take into account right up, and I'm going to have strategies and tactics that help me, survive that, as much as I can, as opposed to just sparring and just guessing on what to do. Okay? So, and again, let's just say again, let's go back to the runner. I'm a runner. What strategies can work against me? I have to know that too. What are the disadvantages of a runner? And how does a slugger defeat a runner? Right? How does a blocker beat a runner? How does a runner beat a charger? How does a charger beat a slugger? So each one of these archetypes all have their advantages and disadvantages. Okay? There's not one's better than the other. And it does not matter, if you're male or female, if you're a heavyweight or a featherweight. It does not matter necessarily. The techniques themselves, what techniques you use on the archetypes, don't really determine your archetype. What determines your archetype is how you respond immediately to the threat. Okay, so if I'm out here bouncing around like this, and he goes, yeah, this guy's a runner because he's bouncing around in here, and all of a sudden he takes a swing at me and he goes, wham, hits me, and I go, motherfucker, I just go crazy like that. Whoa, I just went into a charger mode. Okay, so that means basically that I'm standing out here moving around like this because that's the way I was trained by my coach, was to stay on my toes and move away. But as soon as I got hit and that just fucked with my survival, wham, I come at him like that, 100 miles an hour, like a charger. Guess what? I'm probably a charger archetype. Okay, so again, this is a real tricky and a complex subject, and it takes a lot of experience to doing this. I've been doing this for over 20 years and spend a lot of time on really refining these archetypes down. So when I spar or work with somebody, or even my own archetype, I really perfect or try to work on this very specifics to make my archetype better, and also to recognize exactly how somebody else can make their archetype better. Okay? So there's, once you know how to really perfect your archetype, you can learn how to use your archetype to defeat each archetype, and also you can learn how to become each archetype. So if you're a charger by nature, you learn how to become a runner. If you're a slugger by nature, you learn how to become a blocker, and so on and so forth. And once you kind of start to understand and see the light at the end of the tunnel, basically seeing how these archetypes work in here and their advantages and disadvantages, you can start putting together a better game plan when you spar, and ultimately, when you go to face your, when it comes time to fight in the ring, a better game plan on how to deal or set up a method or methods of attack and defense against those archetypes in here, as opposed to just trying to guess by coming up with a general strategy. Is like, oh, he's a striker, I'm going to grapple, I'm going to take him down. That's not a strategy. That's a general strategy. There's no tactics. It's a very vague thing. What kind of archetype is he? Is he a slugger as a puncher? Is he a slugger as a grappler? Right. So it doesn't matter if they're kickers, punchers, grapplers, weapons and stuff. Every person has an archetype that they relate back to when they feel like they need to survive. Okay, so I hope this helps, the fighters and coaches out there, and please leave a comment, and I'm going to explain more about this topic a little later on here as we go throughout the rest of the summertime here. So look for more videos on this topic in here. Again, if you have any comments or questions, go ahead, please feel free to leave them below in here, and I have other videos that talk more in depth about the archetypes here and their advantages and disadvantages in here. So go ahead and make sure you check out those. All right. Thank you and take care.